been cleared for her. And technically, they are right. Every one of those statements is true. But there is one number sitting in Alex Eala's head-to-head record that changes this entire story, and in 3 days of coverage I have not seen a single channel, a single article, a single analyst put it on screen. Not one. And when you understand what that number means, you stop seeing a gift. You start seeing something else entirely. Because the draw did not open up for Alex Eala this week. It quietly took away the one thing she has been doing better than anybody else on the WTA Tour for the last 6 months. And nobody noticed, because it looked like good news. So in the next 20 minutes I am going to show you 3 things. First, the number 0 and 10. What it is, and why it explains almost every loss of her season. Second, why the easiest looking match on her schedule right now might be the single most dangerous one she plays all summer. And third, the price she is already paying this week that no draw sheet will ever show you. But before that number makes any sense at all, you need to understand exactly what kind of player Alex Eala has become in the last 30 days. Because I promise you, she is not the same person who walked into Washington. To understand what is actually happening in Toronto right now, you have to look at the last 30 days. Because they might be the most absurd 30 days any 21-year-old has had on the WTA Tour this decade. Start in Berlin. Grass court, June, deep field. Eala takes out Elena Rybakina, a 2-time Grand Slam champion, one of the biggest hitters in the sport. Then in the next round she takes out Alina Svitolina, world number 8. Back-to-back. 2 top 10 level scalps in 48 hours from a player nobody had seeded to get out of the second round. Then Wimbledon. She walks onto center court and knocks out the defending champion, Iga Swiatek. Let me say that again, because the casual fan version of this story gets flattened every time it gets retold. A 21-year-old from the Philippines, a country with no professional tennis infrastructure to speak of, beat the reigning Wimbledon champion at Wimbledon. She rode that into the 4th round before Jasmine Paolini finally stopped her, 6-4, 4-6, 6-3. Even in defeat, she took a set off a Roland Garros finalist, and then Washington, 5 matches. Zheng Qinwen first, the Olympic gold medalist. Then Leylah Fernandez, the defending champion of that tournament, in a match where Eala was down 1-4 in the second set and won anyway. Then Svitolina again in the quarterfinals, 6-3, 6-4, this time on hard court, this time as the number 2 seed. Then Naomi Osaka in the semifinals. And then Jessica Pegula in the final, where she lost the first set 6-4, clawed back the second 6-4, and then did something I still do not think people have processed properly. She won the third set 6 games to love. Not a tight decider. Not a scrappy hold and break. A bagel. In a final. Against a former US Open finalist and the world number 3, with her first career title sitting on the other side of the net. Eala dropped to the court with her head in her hands when it ended, tears in her eyes before she got up to hug Pegula. She said afterward that she was so nervous she basically blacked out and everything just came rushing at her. First Filipina in history to win a tour-level singles title. First Southeast Asian to win a WTA 500. Manny Pacquiao posted that her comeback showed the heart of a Filipino, and called her our new champion. Now here is why I am walking you through all of that instead of jumping straight to the number. If you are here because you love this story, you are already invested. You want somebody to tell you she can go all the way in Toronto. And I get it, everything I just listed says she can. So if you want that version of the analysis, comment the word Toronto below and I will know to make it, because there is absolutely a case for it and I will happily build it. But that is not the video you are watching, and I would rather be useful to you than comfortable. Because Toronto is not Washington, and that distinction matters more than almost anybody is admitting. Washington is a WTA 500. 32 players. 5 matches to a title. Toronto is a WTA 1000, the tier directly below a Grand Slam. 96 players in the draw. 7 matches if you go all the way. 1,000 ranking points to the winner instead of 470. Think of it this way. Washington was a regional championship where you might face 2 top 20 players if you go deep. Toronto is the national final. And the top 20 density is roughly double. There is no soft round. There is no breather. Eala came into it as the 25th seed with a first-round bye. She played Alicia Parks on Wednesday and won 6-1, 4-6, 6-2, which pushed her to 6 wins and 0 losses on the North American hardcourt swing. So, a career-high ranking of 20. A maiden title in hand. A perfect summer record. And a draw that just fell apart in her favor. On paper, that is a perfect storm. Which is exactly why the first number I want to put in front of you is so deeply uncomfortable. At WTA level, Alex Eala is 0-10 against Czech players. 10 matches. 0 wins. Let that sit for a second. Because this is a woman who has beaten Rybakina, Swiatek, Svitolina, Osaka and Pegula inside 5 weeks. She can beat anybody in this sport. Except, apparently, anybody from one specific country. And I want to be precise here, because a stat like that is easy to wave away as noise. Small sample. Coincidence. Bad luck. So let me show you the shape of it. Take Noskova specifically, the woman who just crashed out on Wednesday. Eala has played her twice at tour level this year. Miami in March. Berlin in June. Different surface, different continent, different point in the season, different form. Eala did not win a single set in either match. Not one. And remember, Berlin is the same tournament where she beat Rybakina, who hits the ball harder than Noskova does. Same week. Same player. Same form. So that is not a fitness problem, and it is not a confidence problem. Something about that specific matchup does something to her. Second example. Her only opening round loss at a WTA 1000 event all season came in Doha, against Teresa Valentova. Valentova is not a household name. She was not seeded, she was not favored. And she beat Alex Eala at a level where Eala has otherwise gone 6-1 this year. Valentova is Czech. Third. Maria Bouzkova, the 21st seed who just went out in Toronto. Head-to-head, Bouzkova leads Eala 2-0. So look at what actually happened on Wednesday night in that draw. 3 players came off Eala's side. Noskova, Czech. Bouzkova, Czech. Krejcikova, Czech. 3 of them, all from the same country. All from the exact group of opponents against whom this player has never won a professional match. Wiped out in a single evening, in a single half of a single draw. That is either the luckiest 6 hours of Alex Eala's career, or it is the setup to something more complicated. And I am going to argue, it is the second one. But before I can do that, I owe you an explanation for why the pattern exists in the first place. Because if you do not understand the mechanism, the stat is just trivia. Here is what I think is going on, and this is the part where I would ask you to actually watch the tape rather than the highlight reels. Czech tennis has a house style. It has for 20 years. Flat ball, early contact, hit on the rise, take the ball out of the air before it peaks, and aim it directly into the opponent's body rather than into the corners. It is a system built specifically to remove time. Not to overpower you. To rush you. Now think about how Alex Eala actually wins matches. Her greatest weapon is not her serve. It is not raw power. It is her two-handed backhand and her reading. She is one of the best young anticipators in the sport. She watches your hips, she watches your racket face, she guesses right, and she redirects the ball into space you did not know you had left open. Andy Roddick described what she does on court as making opponents uncomfortable, and that is exactly the right word. She is not blowing you off the court, she is outthinking you, one shot at a time. But every single thing I just described requires one resource. Time. Reading requires time. Redirecting requires time. Setting up on a two-handed backhand requires time. Take a tenth of a second away from Alex Eala and you have not weakened her, you have deleted her entire method. Which is why the Rybakina comparison matters so much. Rybakina hits the ball substantially harder than Linda Noskova does. On a radar gun, it is not close. And Eala beat her. Because Rybakina, for all that power, plays from behind the baseline and gives you a fraction of a second to see it coming. Noskova stands on the line and takes it early. Eala is not afraid of pace. She is vulnerable to stolen time. Once you see that, the 0 and 10 stops being a curiosity and starts being a diagnosis. It is the single cleanest explanation for almost every loss she has taken this season. Parks in Australia, huge serve, 10 aces, rushing her. Valentova in Doha, early ball, rushing her. Noskova twice, standing on the baseline, rushing her. So, here is where I have to stop and ask you the question that this entire video hinges on. If that is the worst matchup in Alex Eala's professional life, And if that exact matchup profile just got surgically removed from her half of the Toronto draw, 3 players in one night, before she even had to play any of them, why on earth would I be sitting here telling you this is bad news? Because it is. And the reason has almost nothing to do with Linda Noskova. It has to do with something Alex Eala has done 6 times in a row this season that literally nobody is talking about. Here is what nobody put on screen this week. In 2026, Alex Eala has now avenged her losses against the last 6 opponents who beat her. 6 straight. That is not a hot streak. That is a system. Look at Wednesday night. In January, at the Australian Open, Alicia Parks beat Alex Eala in the first round. And the way it happened matters. Eala won the opening set 6 games to love. A bagel. Total control. And then Parks came back and took it 3-6, 2-6. Eala had the match in her hands and watched it evaporate. 7 months later, in Toronto, same 2 players. Eala wins the first set 6-1. Parks fights back and takes the second 6-4 with 10 aces. Identical script. Same collapse forming in real time, same big serving American finding her range, same third set on the horizon. Except this time, Eala wins the last 4 games of the match and closes it 6-2. Same opponent, same pattern. Opposite ending. Now do it again with Svitolina. Svitolina had beaten Eala before. Eala beat her in Berlin. Then beat her again in Washington in the quarterfinals, 6-3, 6-4, in straight sets, as the number 2 seed. Do it with Fernandez. Do it with the rest of that list of 6. The pattern holds every single time. So now put the 2 numbers next to each other. 0 and 10 against Czechs, 6 for 6 on rematches. And the thing that has been sitting in front of everybody all summer finally comes into focus. Alex Eala is not bad at tennis players. She is bad at first meetings. Go back and check it. The Parks loss in Australia, first career meeting. The Valentova loss in Doha, first career meeting. The Noskova loss in Miami, first meeting at WTA level. The pattern that looked like a nationality problem is actually something much more specific and much more human. She walks onto court against someone she has never played. She does not have the tape in her head yet, she does not have the read yet, and she loses. Then she goes away, her team breaks it down, she comes back, and she takes them apart. She is not good at first meetings. She is lethal at second ones. And if you have been watching this channel for a while, and you have been trying to explain her results to your friends, and it has never quite added up, that is the sentence. That is the whole thing. Tell me in the comments if you already saw this before I said it. Because a few of you did, I know you did, and I want to see who. Now go back to the draw. Linda Noskova was not just a hard opponent waiting in round 3. Linda Noskova was a loaded rematch. 2 previous losses already in the bank. 2 full match tapes already broken down by Eala's team. Everything about that matchup was pre-loaded into exactly the mode where this player becomes a completely different competitor. And she is gone. So who is waiting in round 3 instead? Katie McNally. First career meeting. Never played her. Not once. Not at junior level, not at challenger level, not at tour level. 0 tape from Eala's own experience. 0 reads. 0 muscle memory. The draw did not hand Alex Eala an easier opponent. It handed her a blank page, and this player has spent her entire season proving that blank pages are the only thing that beat her. Think of it like this. You study for a month for one specific exam. You know the professor, you have last year's paper, you know exactly which questions are coming. Then you walk into the room and they hand you a completely different subject. The new paper might genuinely be easier. But the only advantage you actually had is gone. And let me kill the idea that McNally is a soft landing while we are here, because she is not. She is ranked 70 in the world. That number is misleading. She hit a career high of 50 in June of this year. Which means she is climbing, not fading. She is 24 years old and she has been on tour since 2019. She reached a quarterfinal in Memphis this season. And on Wednesday night, she walked onto court against the reigning Wimbledon champion and beat her 7-6 inches the first set, and then 6-1 inch the second. 6-1. Against a Grand Slam champion. She said afterward that it is never easy playing anyone, but especially a Wimbledon champion, and that she just had to focus on her own side of the net and do what she does best. That is a player in form, playing without pressure, with nothing to lose, against a Filipina superstar carrying an entire nation and a brand new title on her back. So the question stops being, how far can Alex Eala go in Toronto? The question becomes something much sharper, much more answerable. Can Alex Eala win a first meeting? Because there are exactly 3 of them standing between her and a WTA 1000 final. And I can show you, round by round, name by name, exactly what her record says about each one. Alright. Let us actually walk the path. Not the version you saw in the headline. The real one, round by round, with the numbers attached to each name. Round 3, Friday night in Toronto. Katie McNally. First career meeting. That is 1. Round 4, if she gets there, is the winner of Taylor Townsend against Belinda Bencic, the 12th seed. And I want you to sit with Townsend for a second, because if you understood the mechanism I laid out earlier, you already know why that name should make you nervous. Townsend is one of the last true serve and volley players in women's tennis. She serves, she comes forward, she cuts the court in half. And she takes the ball out of the air before it ever gets to where you were expecting it. Her entire game is built on one principle. Remove your opponent's time. That is the exact profile I spent 5 minutes explaining. It is not Czech. It is not even close in style. But it does the same thing to Alex Eala that Noskova does, and it does it at the net instead of the baseline. Then the quarterfinal. Projected opponent, Coco Gauff. 2-time Grand Slam champion. Then a semifinal against Elena Rybakina. Then, if she somehow gets all the way, Aryna Sabalenka in the final. That is the path. That is what the collapse draw actually looks like when you write it out instead of just celebrating the names that left. Now, second piece of evidence, and this one is the reality check I think this audience deserves. Put Alex Eala next to the rest of the players ranked 15 to 25 in the world. On one measure, she is genuinely elite. She is 6-1 in opening matches at WTA 1000 events this season. Only one loss, Doha. And you already know who caused it. She shows up. She does not go out early. But here is the number that matters, and it is the one that keeps her honest. Alex Eala has never reached the 4th round of a WTA 1000 event. Not once. In her entire career. That is the real line in front of her this week. Not the trophy. Not the semi-final. The round of 16. Friday night against Katie McNally is not a formality on the way to Coco Gauff. It is the biggest structural barrier of her career to date, and it happens to be a first meeting, and the timing of that is either poetry or cruelty depending on how the night goes. Third piece of evidence. And this is the one that every draw analysis on the internet has completely ignored, because draw sheets do not have a column for it. The schedule. The Washington final got suspended by rain. Eala was down a set and a break when they pulled them off court. So instead of finishing on Sunday, she came back and finished it on Monday. She won her first career title on a Monday afternoon, gave her interviews, cried, called her parents, and then got on a plane. Wednesday night, she is on center court in Toronto playing Alicia Parks in a 3-set match. Friday night, round 3. That is 2 straight weeks with no real rest day, following a tournament where she played 5 matches and 3 of them went the distance. She has now won 6 consecutive matches on hard courts across 2 cities in 9 days. The preview writers notice this too. The consensus read is that she is a commanding favorite against McNally, but the sheer volume of tennis in her legs is the one thing that could flip it. So here is my actual prediction, and it is not a scoreline. If Alex Eala beats Katie McNally on Friday, her odds of going deep in this tournament jump far more than the bracket suggests they should. Not because the road gets easier afterward. It does not. Gauff is sitting right there. But because she will have proven, on the biggest stage available to her, with a tired body and a fresh title and no tape to study, that she has fixed the one flaw that has defined her losses all season. That is the signal, not the scoreline. Whether she can beat somebody she has never seen before. And one last thing for those of you who have stayed with me this far, because this detail deserves more attention than it got. Coco Gauff, the woman most likely to face Eala in the quarterfinals, was asked about the Eala phenomenon in her press conference this week. And she did not give a diplomatic non-answer. She said the demographic Alex is bringing into tennis is something all of them should embrace. Because the entire tour is benefiting from it. She said, watching a nation of people who have never felt represented in this sport finally see themselves out there is genuinely inspiring, and that it makes the game more fun for her to play. She said that knowing full well she might have to walk out and try to end that run in about 4 days. And there is one more thing on Friday's schedule in Toronto that tells you more about where Alex Eala's head is right now than any draw sheet ever could. At 8:10 on Friday night, after she has already played a third-round singles match against Katie McNally, Alex Eala walks back onto a court in Toronto to play doubles with Venus Williams. And 8 days ago, she pulled out of exactly that partnership in Washington. They had a wild card. It was announced. And then Eala withdrew before the draw got underway, and the reason she gave was one of the most self-aware things I have heard a 21-year-old athlete say. She said Venus deserves a partner who can give everything physically, emotionally and mentally when they are on court together. And that right now, she could only do that for singles. She said she did not have the capacity yet to give that in both. 8 days later, she took the wild card. That is not a scheduling detail. That is a status update on how a young player sees herself. 8 days ago the honest answer was I am not enough for two things at once. Tonight the answer is different. Something changed in Washington, and it was not just the trophy. It is also, and I have to be straight with you, the single biggest physical risk in this entire path to a title. 2 matches in one night, in week 2 of no rest days. And here is the last piece, because this is bigger than one bracket. Her tickets in Toronto sold out in 30 minutes. 30. The tournament had to move her match off grandstand, which holds 2,800 people, onto center court, because the director said she had probably sold upwards of 5,000. He said he has never seen a player ranked outside the top 5 have this kind of effect, and that every tournament director in the sport is talking about it. By one count she is the first player, male or female, to sell out an opening Wednesday night session at that tournament since Serena Williams. So no. The draw did not collapse in her favor. It changed the question. Noskova leaving did not hand Alex Eala a title. Noskova leaving took away a loaded rematch and replaced it with a blank page. And blank pages are the only